everyone, welcome to another lesson, and in this lesson we'll be talking about the argument objects and regular functions in JavaScript. So JavaScript functions have a built-in object called the argument object. The argument object contains an array of the arguments used when the function was called to invoked. This way you can simply use a function to find, for instance, the highest value in a number in a list of numbers. I want to quickly remind us that in the previous lesson, when we were talking about numbers in JavaScript, you will recall that there was a particular point where we talked about the number built-in object in JavaScript that takes properties of numbers in JavaScript in order to display some built-in objects when working with numbers in JavaScript. So the same thing is the way this argument object exists when working with functions in JavaScript. And for a quick demonstration, let me just pull up the editor and show us what the argument object looks like in JavaScript. So I'll go ahead and make a simple function this way. I will not pass in any parameter. And then I'm just going to console.log. I want to show the argument as a built-in object in JavaScript. And then I'll call it show argument. And then I'll pass it something as simple as hello world. So I'll comment this out so that I can inspect it. I can click on inspect to check my console from output. And now, if you take a look at this, you can see I have three arguments: hello at the index position of 0, 1 at the index position of 1, and 2, the exclamation at the index position of 2. So this is how argument object works in JavaScript. Now, there are some things to know. I can as well pass numbers. And definitely this will change. You can see now that from any word it has changed to numbers that you can see. You see 1 in the index position of 0, 2 in the index position of 1, and 3 in the index position of 2. It exists only inside functions. It is array-like, but not a real array. You can see that the way these arguments are arranged looks like an array, but it's not a real array. It's an argument object. When working with regular functions in JavaScript, it stores arguments using index numbers. As you can see that 1 has an index number position of 0, etc. like that. And then it has a length property. Look at this. If I do argument.length, if I pass in a property, you should see that it's showing in 3, which means that if you look at this argument, just like we saw earlier, when we haven't added the length, you can see that we have arguments. You can see that the length is 3, as you can see here. So, which means that if I pass in the length property by default, it's going to give me 3 as the length property of that argument. Now, look at another thing I want us to examine about this objects, built-in object argument in JavaScript is the fact that it has there's a difference between it and parameters that usually pass to functions in JavaScript. So when you pass a parameter, say like A or B, let me quickly demo that as well. So let's say, I have something like A, B. This is the parameter, the normal usual parameter that I can pass into my, normal functions and then invoke that function to get it out. But with functions parameter, you can see that you can see that this way, if I inspect my browser, I want to check something for you. Now, you see, I'm still getting 3, even though I may pass these parameters to matches the exact number of this argument that I have here, it will still work. And that is because arguments capture all past value, even extra ones. So it does not matter whether the parameter is stated or not. It's definitely always, works in JavaScript. And since argument is like an array-like, it can also be looped through, just like the way we saw the other time. So let me quickly show an example of how we can loop through it. So let's say I have a function like this, and I call it sum, and then let me set total equals to 0. which is going to be the beginning of where I want my looping to be. So, and then I'll move to the next line for let I equals 0. My starting point, I less argument, which means the length of my argument. Then I plus plus, which is the way of increasing the loop value. And then I can now do something like, okay, total equals total plus, I'll use a shorthand plus arguments, and then I passed in the value of what I am iterating, which is I, and then I can say, okay, after the for loop, return total, which will be the output of my loop, and then come down and pass in arguments. Sum 1, 4, 5. So this, let me give it a value. So if I want to assign it to a variable so that I can show it, and I'll comment this out. Pass this in. Oh, sorry, what am I getting? Value is not defined. That is wrong spelling. As you can see, and then so I'll close this, and then you can see that I am getting 10 as the output just by looping it through that particular instances of the argument length. I'm able to get out the correct output, as you can see in my browser. So the reason why argument is not an array, even though it looks like an array, is because it does not have any method. Normal array has method like push to add, map, filter, and some other properties like that. Argument, if you try to use any array property on it, it will not work, and that is the reason why it is not an array unless you convert it into an array before you use it. Now, also take note that arrow function do not have their own argument object. So it's only when they inherit it from the surrounding scope, that is when argument object works with an arrow function as well in JavaScript. Now, the real purpose of this argument object is just for the simple reason of probably maybe you have a legacy code, or you happen to be working with a legacy code. So it still appears in other code because it's not like all these modern techniques or all these ES6 features that we see in JavaScript after the release of the ES6. That all this modern JavaScript, it's not like one of these modern JavaScript features, but it's a legacy, a legacy feature in JavaScript that still appears in other code. And it is also important for understanding JavaScript history, and especially if you are working with a legacy code. So being aware or being in the know of this particular argument object when working with function can really help you a lot once you have an idea of how it works and what it does in your JavaScript functions. Thank you. And in the next lesson, I'll see you in the next lesson. Thank you.